my presentation gives an overview, a very superficial overview of how A beta is born and how it is cleared out of the brain and how it is building up in the brain as a result of a failure of clearance. As you get older, it can't get out of the brain as well as if you were younger. And so we are trying now to understand the molecular basis of this. The most interesting parts of my presentation, I think, for me anyway, are the new revelations that there are selected areas of the brain, particularly in that area of the brain that we call the default mode network, which is the posterior cingulate cortex, the precuneus, and also the frontal cortex, which together form part of a system called the default mode network. Those are the areas of the brain that are affected first in preclinical disease. So as the disease begins in your 40s and 50s, the amyloid is gradually building up over many years in these particular areas of the brain. And the first symptoms, or the first detectable signs of impairment, are a defect in learning as opposed to a defect in memory. And this is very important for us to understand, because those areas of the brain where it's building up first seem to be those areas of the brain which are involved with learning, not memory. And so this is a very important revelation, for me at least, that we've been mistaking the clinical symptomatology of Alzheimer's disease for many years. We've typically concentrated on memory defects, which are retrieving information which is going into the brain, as opposed to not understanding yet how the information goes into the brain. And so the information going into the brain is what we call learning. And it turns out that maybe the amyloid protein and its precursor is highly involved in this learning process. And if that turns out to be the case, it'll suddenly explain a lot of the pathophysiology of this disease.